The artificial lights of Proxima Station's Xenobazaar pulsed in alternating rhythms of blue and amber, casting strange shadows across the diverse faces of a dozen different species. Scents from 100 worlds mingled in the recycled air. The spice of Centaurian flame peppers, the metallic tang of Betelgeusian mineral water, and the unmistakable greasy aroma of Earth-style French fries. Jace Morgan weaved through the crowded marketplace, his multi-pocketed courier vest worn and faded from years traversing the shipping lanes between Earth's colonies. He'd spent the last of his credits on the small paper container of fries, a rare luxury that reminded him of home. The vendor, a six-armed Vexillian with eyes that rotated independently, had charged him triple the Earth price. But Jace hadn't complained. Some comforts were worth the expense, especially when you'd been living on processed protein packs for 3 standard months. He found an empty bench near the observation deck and sat down, watching the slow dance of ships arriving and departing through the massive viewport. The vast emptiness of space stretched beyond, punctuated by the brilliant light of distant stars. Jace popped a fry into his mouth, savoring the salty flavor and crisp texture. For a moment, he could almost imagine he was back in Chicago, sitting in Millennium Park, watching tourists crowd around the bean. The illusion shattered when a shadow fell across him. Jace glanced up to find a Philidian standing a meter away, watching him with unblinking orange eyes. She was tall and lithe, with sky-blue fur covering her body and facial features that reminded him of Earth's big cats. Her ears twitched slightly, tracking sounds in the busy bazaar, and her tail swished slowly behind her. The Philidian's gaze wasn't fixed on Jace, but on the container of fries in his hand. Her posture was tense, almost predatory, but there was something else there, a hunger that went beyond simple predation. Jace had encountered Philidians before in his courier runs. They were known for their hunting prowess, enhanced strength, and a strict code of honor that guided their interactions with other species. This one wore no visible insignia of rank or clan, unusual for her kind. Her clothes were practical but worn, suggesting she'd been traveling for some time without resources to spare. When she noticed Jace watching her, the Philidian straightened, pride momentarily overcoming hunger. But her orange eyes kept darting back to the fries, and Jace could swear he heard a faint rumbling from her stomach. With a sigh, half reluctance, half sympathy, Jace extended the container toward her. "Hungry?" The Philidian's ears perked forward in surprise. She hesitated, then approached cautiously, as if expecting a trap. With lightning-quick reflexes, she plucked a single fry from the container and sniffed it curiously before taking a tentative bite. Her reaction was immediate and startling. Her eyes widened, pupils dilating as she devoured the rest of the fry in one quick motion. A low, rumbling purr emanated from her chest. "More?" she asked, the universal translator embedded in Jace's ear, rendering her guttural language into standard English. Jace shrugged and pushed the container toward her. "Help yourself." The Philidian didn't need to be told twice. She sat beside him on the bench and began eating with precise, deliberate movements that still somehow conveyed ravenous hunger. When half the container was empty, she paused and looked at Jace with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You share your sustenance with a stranger," she said, her voice a low rumble through the translator. "This is uncommon among your kind." Jace shrugged. "Just fries. Nothing special." "This delicacy is common on your world?" Her tone suggested disbelief. "Pretty much. Just potatoes fried in oil with salt." The Philidian's whiskers twitched in what might have been amusement. "Your species fails to appreciate its treasures." She consumed another fry with obvious delight. "I am Kira of the Night Shadow Pride. You have given me sustenance when I had none. By the laws of my people, I now owe you a life debt." Jace nearly choked on his fry. "A what now?" "A life debt," Kira repeated, as if the concept should be obvious. You have preserved my life with your generosity. I am bound by honor to protect yours in return, until the debt is balanced. Hold on, Jace raised his hands. It was just a few fries, not a life-saving. His protests were cut short as a station security officer approached their bench. The uniformed human glanced suspiciously at Jace's courier vest, then at Kira. ID checks, the officer announced, holding out a scanner. Random security sweep. Before Jace could respond, Kira's demeanor transformed. Her fur bristled, making her appear twice her size, and a low, threatening growl emanated from deep in her throat. She positioned herself partially between Jace and the officer. Orange eyes narrowed to slits. The security officer took an instinctive step back, hand moving toward the stun baton at his belt. Control your companion, citizen, or I'll have both of you detained for threatening an officer. She's not my... Jace began, then quickly shifted tactics. Sorry, officer. She's new to station protocols. He placed a cautious hand on Kira's shoulder, feeling the tense muscles beneath her fur. Easy, he murmured. They're just doing their job. Kira's growl subsided, but her posture remained defensive. The security officer, clearly deciding the situation wasn't worth the paperwork, muttered something about keeping exotic pets under control, and moved on to hassle someone else. Once the officer was out of earshot, Jace turned to Kira. What the hell was that about? I am protecting you, she stated simply. Your law enforcers often target couriers for contraband searches. I prevented an unnecessary interaction. By nearly getting us both arrested? Jace ran a hand through his short brown hair in frustration. Look, I appreciate the sentiment, but I don't need a life debt or a bodyguard, especially not one who growls at everyone who comes near me. Kira's ears flattened against her head. You reject my oath? Something in her tone made Jace pause. There was pride there, certainly, but also a note of something else. Desperation, perhaps. He recalled stories he'd heard about Philidian culture, how being unable to fulfill a life debt was considered deeply shameful. I don't reject anything, he said carefully. But there seems to be a cultural misunderstanding here. Humans don't typically do life debts. The obligation is mine, not yours, Kira replied. It is a matter of Philidian honor. To refuse to fulfill my debt would bring shame upon my lineage. Jace sighed deeply. Okay, we need to talk about this properly. And my translator module isn't equipped for cultural nuances. He stood, gathering the now empty fry container. There's a translation booth 2 levels down. Let's get this sorted out. The translation booth was operated by the same six-eyed Vexillian who had sold Jace the fries. The elderly alien brightened at seeing a potential customer, all 6 eyes blinking in sequence. Ah, the Earth human returns. And with a Philidian companion? Most interesting. The Vexillian's voice was high and melodic. Require translation services, yes? A temporary neural link translator, Jace specified. One that can handle cultural context and idioms between human standard and Philidian prime. The Vexillian named a price that made Jace wince, but he transferred the credits anyway. This situation needed clarity before it spiraled further out of control. The device was a small, translucent disc that adhered to Jace's temple. As the Vexillian activated it, Jace felt a brief, painless tingle as the device established a connection with his neural pathways. Excellent, excellent, the Vexillian hummed. 24-hour rental. Simply peel off when finished. Now you and the exiled hunter can properly communicate. Yes? Kira's fur bristled at the word exiled, but she remained silent. Exiled? Jace asked, glancing at Kira. The Vexillian's eyes rotated in a pattern that suggested embarrassment. Apologies if I overstepped. The lack of pride markings and solo travel? I made an assumption. Jace thanked the Vexillian and led Kira to a quieter corner of the bazaar. finding seats at an empty food stall, closing for the station's artificial night cycle. "So," he began, feeling the translator working more efficiently now. "You're an exiled hunter?" Kira's tail lashed once, a sign of agitation. "Third-rank hunter of the Night Shadow Pride," she corrected. "And yes, I chose exile rather than follow a dishonorable command." Her orange eyes fixed on him with unsettling intensity. "That does not diminish my obligation to you. A life debt transcends pride politics." "About this life debt," Jace said, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Sharing food is just a common courtesy for humans. It doesn't create any obligation. Among my people, providing sustenance to one who hungers is sacred," Kira explained, her translator now conveying subtle emotional undertones that Jace's standard model had missed. "Particularly in a place of scarcity. I had not eaten in 3 cycles when you offered your fries. Without nourishment, I would have weakened further, becoming vulnerable to predators." "Predators on a space station?" Kira's expression suggested she found his naivety amusing. "Not all predators walk on 4 legs. Human. Some wear uniforms. Others business attire. The hungry become prey for many." Jace couldn't argue with that logic. Fair point, but still, a life debt seems extreme for sharing a snack. "The debt is not measured by what you gave, but by what was received," Kira explained. "You gave without expectation of return, to a stranger of another species. Such actions are rare across the known galaxies." Her voice lowered. "And I have nowhere else to go, no pride to return to. Fulfilling this debt gives me purpose." The raw honesty in her statement caught Jace off guard. He studied her more carefully now, the slight thinness beneath her blue fur, the watchful wariness in her orange eyes, the way she positioned herself to keep all approaches in view. She was a survivor, like him, making her way through the unforgiving expanse of interstellar society. "How long does this debt last?" he asked finally. "Until I save your life in equal measure, or you release me from the obligation." Her whiskers twitched. "Though the latter would bring dishonor." Jace rubbed his temples. "So I'm stuck with you until you save my life? Or until you die of natural causes," Kira added helpfully. "Though I would consider that a failure on my part." "Wonderful," Jace muttered. He had a job scheduled for tomorrow, a confidential package delivery to Helios Colony, the kind of work that required discretion and, most importantly, working alone. Having a Philidian shadow would complicate things immensely. But looking at Kira's determined expression, Jace realized he had limited options. Attempting to ditch her would likely just result in her tracking him across the station, potentially causing even more disruption. "Fine," he conceded. "For now, you can stick around. But we need ground rules. First, no more growling at people unless I signal there's actual danger." Kira tilted her head. "How will I know what constitutes danger to you?" "Trust that I know what threatens me in my own environment," Jace said. "I've survived this long on my own." Kira seemed unconvinced but nodded. "I will attempt to restrain my protective instincts. What else?" "My apartment is small, so you'll have to sleep on the couch. And tomorrow I have a job. A delivery that requires discretion." "I will be discreet," Kira promised. Though the intent way she watched him suggested her definition of discreet might differ from his. Jace led Kira through the winding corridors of Proxima Station's residential section, keenly aware of the curious glances they attracted. Human Philidian pairs weren't unheard of, but they were uncommon enough to draw attention, especially when the Philidian showed no pride markings. His apartment was on level 27, a small efficiency unit that barely justified its exorbitant rent. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a living space that doubled as a bedroom, with a kitchenette tucked into one corner and a bathroom barely large enough to turn around in. The walls were adorned with a few reminders of Earth, a vintage poster for the Maltese Falcon, a small shelf of actual paper books that had cost a fortune to transport, and a holographic projection of the Chicago skyline that cycled through different times of day. Kira entered cautiously, her nostrils flaring as she took in the unfamiliar scents. She moved with fluid grace, examining the apartment with predator's eyes that missed nothing. "Your defensive perimeter is inadequate," she announced, after completing her inspection. "The ventilation shaft could admit a small intruder. The window seal is worn at the lower corner. The door's electronic lock uses an outdated encryption protocol." "Good to know," Jace replied dryly. "I'll add security upgrade to my to-do list, right after figure out what to do with unexpected Philidian bodyguard." Kira either missed or ignored his sarcasm. "I will take a position by the door tonight," she stated, settling into a cross-legged posture that somehow still suggested readiness for immediate action. "The couch would be more comfortable," Jace pointed out, gesturing to the small sofa against the wall. "Comfort is irrelevant to duty," Kira replied, but after a moment's consideration, she rose fluidly and moved to the couch, perching on its edge. Jace shook his head and began preparing for his delivery job, laying out his courier credentials and checking the schedule on his portable terminal. "I'm picking up a package from Storage Unit 342 at Dock 17 tomorrow," he explained, more to fill the silence than because he thought Kira needed to know. "It's going to Helios Colony. Client says it's time-sensitive research materials." "You suspect otherwise," Kira observed. Jace glanced up, surprised by her perception. "Let's just say that people with legitimate research materials usually use official channels, not independent couriers. Yet you accept the commission." "It pays well," Jace said with a shrug. "And I don't ask questions as long as it's not obviously harmful. Gray market shipping keeps the colonies functioning when official bureaucracy fails them." Kira's whiskers twitched in what Jace was beginning to recognize as her version of a smile. "So you are a hunter of opportunity, like me. We are not so different." "I suppose not," Jace admitted, "though I prefer to work alone." "That is no longer an option," Kira reminded him. "I will accompany you tomorrow." Jace opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. The stubborn set of Kira's features told him it would be a waste of breath. "Fine," he conceded. "But you follow my lead. No growling, no threatening postures, no drawing attention. You're just another courier assistant. Got it?" "I understand the parameters of the hunt," Kira agreed solemnly. Jace wasn't entirely convinced, but it would have to do. He dimmed the lights and stretched out on his bed, acutely aware of the Philidian's glowing orange eyes, watching him from the darkness. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. Dock 17 existed in the perpetual twilight that characterized Proxima Station's maintenance and storage levels. The vast hangar was a maze of shipping containers, storage units, and loading equipment, populated by the occasional maintenance droid and shifty-eyed freelancer. Jace moved through the space with practiced nonchalance, Kira following close behind. He'd convinced her to wear a standard-issue loader's jacket to make her blend in better, though nothing could disguise her blue fur and distinctive Philidian features. At least she'd agreed to keep her growling to a minimum. Storage Unit 342 was tucked away in a corner, partially obscured by larger shipping containers. Jace approached the access panel and entered the code he'd been provided. The door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a small, climate-controlled chamber containing a single package about the size of a shoebox. "Wait here," Jace instructed Kira, who took up position beside the door, her posture alert, but not overtly aggressive. Inside the storage unit, Jace examined the package carefully. It was sealed in standard anti-tampering material, with environmental stabilizers suggesting its contents were sensitive to temperature fluctuations. The destination codes for Helios Colony were properly formatted, but something felt off. Jace had developed a courier's intuition over the years, a sense for when a package wasn't what it claimed to be. This one triggered all his warning instincts. There was a faint, biological odor that the containment field couldn't quite mask, and the weight distribution felt uneven, suggesting multiple components. He was about to conduct a more thorough scan when Kira's low warning growl reached him from outside. Jace slipped the package into his courier bag and stepped out of the storage unit to find three figures blocking their path. The leader was a broad-shouldered human with a cybernetic eye implant that glowed faintly red in the dim light. His companions, a muscular Taurian female and a human male with military-grade arm augmentations, flanked him, their postures suggesting they were comfortable with violence. "Morgan," the leader greeted Jace with false cordiality. "Fancy meeting you here." "Decker," Jace replied, keeping his voice neutral. "I'm on a job. Whatever you're selling. I'm not buying." Decker's artificial eye whirred as it focused. "Not selling. Morgan. Collecting. That package you're carrying belongs to my employer." "Your employer should check their records," Jace replied coolly. "This package is commissioned for delivery to Helios Colony." "Plans change," Decker said with a smile that didn't reach his organic eye. "The director would prefer that package be rerouted. Immediately." Jace felt Kira tensing beside him, the rumble in her chest growing more pronounced. He placed a warning hand on her arm, feeling the coiled muscles beneath her fur. "I have a contract," Jace said. "Breaking it would damage my professional reputation." "Breaking it would be preferable to damaging your kneecaps," the Taurian female suggested, cracking her knuckles for emphasis. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Kira moved with a speed Jace couldn't follow, transforming from alert sentinel to blur of motion. Before he could even process what was happening, the Taurian was on the ground, clutching her throat and gasping for air. The augmented human barely had time to reach for his weapon before Kira swept his legs and drove him face first into the deck plating with a sickening crunch. Decker managed to draw his pulse pistol, but Kira was already on him, her clawed hand closing around his wrist with enough force to make the bones grind together. The weapon clattered to the floor as Decker dropped to his knees, face contorted in pain. "The human has declined your offer," Kira informed him, her voice a dangerous purr. Further negotiation would be unwise. Jace stood frozen for a moment, processing the violence that had erupted and ended in the span of seconds. Then training kicked in. He scooped up Decker's weapon and motioned for Kira to release him. "Who's the director?" Jace demanded, aiming the pulse pistol at Decker's cybernetic eye. "And what's really in this package?" Decker's face twisted into a grimace that might have been intended as a smile. "You're in deeper than you know, Morgan. The director doesn't tolerate failure or loose ends. You deliver that package to the coordinates I send you, or you won't live long enough to reach Helios." "I don't respond well to threats," Jace replied, "especially from middlemen. Either tell me what I'm carrying, or my friend here will demonstrate more Philidian greeting customs." Kira bared her teeth in what no one could mistake for a smile. Decker's bravado crumbled. "It's a bioweapon," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "Tailored to target the specific environmental systems at the Europa research facility. The package also contains a timer set to detonate shortly after your scheduled arrival at Helios. You'd be the perfect patsy for an attack on Earth's premier research installation." Jace felt cold dread settle in his stomach. "Who's behind this?" "Director Naomi Blackwood, Sentinel Dynamics." Decker's voice shook slightly. "Former Earth intelligence, now runs her own operation. She wants the new FTL drive research data from Europa. Tried to get it legitimately, was denied. This is her alternative acquisition strategy. And I'm the fall guy," Jace concluded. He turned to Kira. "We need to go, now." Kira nodded, delivering one last warning growl to the defeated trio before following Jace toward the dock's exit. They moved quickly, but didn't run. Running attracted attention on space stations. "The package is dangerous," Kira stated, rather than asked, as they entered a maintenance corridor. Apparently I'm carrying a bioweapon and a bomb, Jace confirmed grimly. Intended to frame me for an attack on a research facility. He pulled out his portable terminal. We need information about this Director Blackwood and the Europa facility. I know someone who might help. A quick message exchange led them to Club Paradox, an upscale establishment on the station's upper levels, where the gravity was kept slightly lower than standard to enhance the otherworldly atmosphere. Bioluminescent plants from a dozen worlds provided shifting, colorful lighting that made facial recognition systems struggle to maintain lock, a feature that attracted a certain clientele. Alara Voss, known to most as simply Alara, was waiting for them in a private booth, her silver hair and pearl-white skin marking her as a native of Europa's surface colonies. Her eyes widened slightly at the sight of Kira, but she made no comment. Jace Morgan, she greeted him with a cool smile. Still delivering packages that don't officially exist. I see. Still selling information about things people wish would stay secret, Jace countered, sliding into the booth across from her. Kira remained standing, positioning herself where she could watch all approaches. Information broker, Alara corrected primly. And quite good at it. Your message mentioned Naomi Blackwood? That's an interesting name to drop. I need to know what I'm dealing with, Jace said. And what's happening at the Europa research facility? Alara's expression grew serious. Dangerous waters. Courier. Blackwood runs Sentinel Dynamics like a private intelligence agency. Ex-Earth intelligence operative, who decided government oversight was too restrictive for her ambitions. She specializes in technology acquisition, by any means necessary. And Europa? They're testing a new FTL drive design next week. Theoretical model that could cut interstellar travel time by 70%. If it works, whoever controls the patents controls the future of space travel. Alara sipped her iridescent drink. Blackwood made offers to key scientists. They declined. Now you're carrying a package toward Helios Colony, which just happens to be in the same system as Europa. A package containing a bioweapon and bomb, Jace confirmed. Alara paled further, which Jace wouldn't have thought possible. Then you're already dead, Courier. Blackwood doesn't leave loose ends. Unless I can expose her plan, Jace countered. I need a secure channel to the Europa facility. Impossible from here. Alara shook her head. Blackwood has monitoring systems throughout Proxima's communications grid. Any message mentioning Europa or bioweapons would be flagged instantly. Then I need to go there directly, Jace decided. Warn them in person. With an active bioweapon in your possession. Alara's laugh held no humor. You'd never make it through their security perimeter. I need options, Alara, not problems. The information broker was silent for a long moment, considering. There's someone who might help. A Taurian informant named Moran, who used to work for Blackwood before growing a conscience. He's hiding in the lower levels. Maintenance Sector 12B. He might know enough about the weapon to help you neutralize it, or at least prove your innocence. Jace nodded. Thank you. Don't thank me, Alara replied. Just don't mention my name when they catch you. She slipped from the booth and disappeared into the club's shifting light patterns. Moran proved difficult to find, but Kira's enhanced senses eventually located the Taurian hiding behind a false wall panel in an abandoned hydroponics bay. The trembling informant confirmed what Decker had revealed and added crucial details. The bioweapon was designed specifically to target the cooling systems of Europa's experimental FTL drive, causing a catastrophic meltdown that would destroy the facility and all research data. Moran also provided the deactivation codes for the timer, though he warned they would only delay, not prevent, detonation. Why is Jace the target? Kira demanded, her growl making the already nervous Taurian shrink further. Convenient scapegoat, Moran stammered, his characteristic Taurian speech impediment worsening under stress. Independent courier with access to restricted areas, no corporate or governmental protection, Perfect patsy for an anti-Earth terrorist attack. Armed with this information and the deactivation codes, Jace made a decision that Kira immediately supported. They would take the package directly to Europa, bypassing Helios Colony entirely. It was risky, approaching a high-security research facility with a bioweapon in their possession, but less risky than allowing Blackwood's plan to proceed. Using the last of his legitimate courier credentials, Jace secured passage on a transport heading for the Jupiter system. Kira remained vigilantly by his side, her presence deterring anyone from asking too many questions about their hurried departure from Proxima Station. The journey to Europa took 3 days of tense travel. Twice they detected signs of pursuit, unmarked ships matching their course changes with too much precision to be coincidence. Each time, Jace's piloting skills and knowledge of lesser-used routes allowed them to evade their followers. Europa's surface gleamed like a massive pearl against the darkness of space, its ice shell reflecting Jupiter's distant light. Beneath that ice lay an ocean deeper than any on Earth, and nestled within the thickest part of the ice shell sat the research facility, a triumph of human engineering and scientific ambition. Approaching the facility required careful negotiation. Jace transmitted ahead, using coded language that would alert the facility's security team to potential danger without triggering automatic defense systems. Their ship was directed to a secondary landing pad and immediately surrounded by security personnel in environmental suits designed for Europa's harsh conditions. What followed was 6 hours of intense questioning, scans, and examinations of both Jace and Kira, as well as the package. The facility's head of security was initially skeptical of their story, but the evidence was compelling. The bioweapon's design specifically targeted the facility's cooling systems, and the timer was set to detonate during a scheduled test of the new FTL drive. Finally, they were escorted to the office of Dr. Eleanor Charleston, the project director for the FTL research. She was a tall, elegant woman with dark skin and eyes that suggested both brilliance and exhaustion in equal measure. "Mr. Morgan," she greeted Jace with a formal nod. "And Kira, is it? You've brought us troubling information." She gestured to the now contained bioweapon, which sat in a specialized isolation chamber on her desk. "Our preliminary analysis confirms everything you've told us. This device would have caused catastrophic failure in our cooling systems during the test phase. Director Blackwood intended for me to be blamed," Jace explained. "The package was originally bound for Helios Colony, but the timer was set to detonate while I was still in transit." Dr. Charleston nodded gravely. "A clever plan. The bioagent contains markers that would have traced back to known anti-Earth extremist groups. Your courier credentials would have placed you at the scene, with a history of handling questionable cargo." She studied him with penetrating intensity. "Why risk your life to bring this directly to us? You could have simply disposed of it and disappeared." Before Jace could answer, an alarm blared through the facility. Dr. Charleston moved immediately to a wall terminal, her fingers flying across the interface. "Security breach in Sector 7, she announced, voice suddenly tense. "The cooling system control room." Kira was on her feet instantly, orange eyes alert. "Blackwood would have contingencies," she growled. "The weapon failed, so now direct sabotage." Dr. Charleston nodded grimly. "The cooling system is already showing temperature spikes. If it overheats during tomorrow's test—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. The implications were clear. Catastrophic failure, explosion, destruction of years of research. "Where's Sector 7? Jace demanded, already moving toward the door. "Northeast quadrant, level 2, Dr. Charleston replied, reaching for a communication device. "I'm ordering a full facility lockdown and evacuation protocol." "No time," Jace said. "Evacuating would play into their hands, create confusion, delay response. Kira and I can reach Sector 7 faster than your security team can mobilize." "You're civilians," Dr. Charleston protested. "This is not your responsibility." It became my responsibility when Blackwood tried to use me, Jace replied. Kira, let's go. The Philidian was already at the door, her keen senses fully alert. Together, they sprinted through the facility's corridors, guided by emergency directional indicators flashing on the walls. The few staff members they encountered were too focused on responding to the alarm to question their presence. Sector 7's entrance was sealed when they arrived, emergency protocols automatically locking down affected areas. Jace accessed the control panel, but the override codes Dr. Charleston had provided were rejected. Manual override disabled, the system announced in a calm, artificial voice that contrasted sharply with the urgency of their situation. Kira examined the sealed door, then the surrounding wall. Ventilation access, she said, pointing to a maintenance panel near the ceiling. I can fit. We both can, Jace insisted. He'd done his share of crawling through tight spaces during less-than-legal courier jobs. The ventilation shaft was cramped and hot, growing warmer as they approached Sector 7. Through the metal beneath them, Jace could feel the vibrations of machinery working at dangerous levels. By the time they reached the access point above the cooling system control room, sweat was pouring down his face, and even Kira's fur was damp with perspiration. Through the ventilation grate, they could see two figures working at the control consoles. They wore the uniforms of facility technicians, but their hurried, furtive movements suggested they weren't regular staff. Saboteurs, Jace whispered. Blackwood's backup plan. Kira nodded. Her eyes narrowed to glowing orange slits. The one on the left is armed, concealed pulse pistol. The other has a neural disruptor in his boot. Jace was long past questioning Kira's observational abilities. They've overridden the cooling systems, temperatures rising fast. He pointed to a display showing critical readings. We've got maybe 2 minutes before the primary cooling coils fail. If that happens, the entire research wing could go up. Plan? Kira asked simply. Jace surveyed the room, noting the emergency manual override valve on the far wall, a massive wheel that would physically open the external cooling vents if turned. It would require significant strength to operate under the current pressure conditions. I'll take the one on the right, he said. You get the one with the gun, then help me with that override valve. We'll need your strength. Kira nodded once, muscles tensing in preparation. Jace counted down silently. 3, 2, 1. They burst through the grate simultaneously. Jace landed on the console in front of the unarmed saboteur, his momentum carrying both of them to the floor. The man was stronger than he looked, immediately throwing Jace off and scrambling for the neural disruptor in his boot. Jace rolled and came up in a fighting stance, years of navigating the rougher aspects of courier work serving him well. He feinted left, then delivered a sharp right hook that caught the saboteur on the jaw, staggering him. A follow-up strike to the solar plexus doubled the man over, allowing Jace to grab his head and bring it down hard against his rising knee. The saboteur crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Meanwhile, Kira had made short work of the armed saboteur. The man lay unmoving near the door, his pulse pistol now in Kira's possession. She tossed it to Jace and moved immediately to the manual override valve. The room was filling with steam as pressure built in the cooling system. Warning lights flashed across all consoles, and an automated voice calmly announced that catastrophic failure was imminent. 90 seconds to cooling system failure. Evacuation protocol enabled. The valve wheel was designed to be turned by at least 2 technicians under normal conditions. Under the current pressure, it might have required 4. Kira gripped it with both hands, her powerful muscles straining as she attempted to rotate the massive wheel. "It's not moving," she growled, frustration evident in her voice. Jace joined her, adding his strength to hers, but the valve remained stubbornly immobile. The pressure behind it was simply too great. 60 seconds to cooling system failure. Steam was now pouring from seams in the cooling pipes, the heat becoming nearly unbearable. Jace's hands slipped on the wheel, skin burning from the hot metal. "Together," Kira insisted. "On my count. 3, 2, 1. They both pulled with everything they had. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a shriek of protesting metal, the wheel began to turn incrementally. Once the initial resistance was overcome, movement became easier. Kira's enhanced strength allowed her to complete the rotation, while Jace stepped back, checking the system readings. "Pressure dropping," he announced, as emergency vents opened, releasing superheated steam into Europa's frigid exterior atmosphere. "Temperature stabilizing. Cooling system failure averted," the automated voice confirmed. "Returning to normal operation parameters." The door to Sector 7 slid open, revealing a squad of security officers in tactical gear, led by Dr. Charleston herself. She surveyed the scene, the unconscious saboteurs, the still hissing cooling vents. Jace and Kira standing amid the dissipating steam, with an expression of mingled relief and amazement. "You actually did it," she said. "You prevented a catastrophe." "All part of the courier service," Jace replied with a wry smile, though his hands were blistered and his lungs burned from the superheated air. "Package delivered, disaster averted. Will there be anything else?" Dr. Charleston's laugh held equal parts humor and disbelief. "I think you've done quite enough, Mr. Morgan." She turned to the security team. "Take these saboteurs into custody, full biometric scans, then interrogation." As the unconscious men were hauled away, Dr. Charleston approached Jace and Kira. "We've received confirmation from Earth Intelligence. They've had Director Blackwood under surveillance for months, suspecting corporate espionage, but lacked concrete evidence. The material you provided, combined with these saboteurs, will be enough to shut down her operation completely." "Glad to help," Jace said, wincing slightly as a medic applied regenerative gel to his burned hands. "Your courier reputation has been officially cleared as well," Dr. Charleston added. "In fact, Earth Transport Guild has extended an offer of licensed operation with full legal protection, should you wish to continue your profession with less gray market clientele." Jace glanced at Kira, who was allowing another medic to examine a minor burn on her arm. The Philidian had risked her life alongside him without hesitation. Whatever her reasons, life debt or otherwise, she'd proven herself a valuable ally. "I'll consider it," he told Dr. Charleston. "After I take a vacation. Recent events have been a bit intense." "Understandable," Dr. Charleston nodded. "We've arranged quarters for you both while our medical team ensures you've suffered no lasting effects from the heat exposure. Tomorrow, after the FTL test, which will proceed as scheduled thanks to your intervention, we can discuss your future options." In the guest quarters, which were luxurious compared to Jace's apartment on Proxima Station, Kira seemed unusually quiet. She sat cross-legged on the floor, orange eyes distant, lost in thought. "Something wrong?" Jace asked, settling into a chair opposite her. Kira's ears twitched. "The life debt is fulfilled," she said simply. "I have protected your life as you preserved mine." "Ah." Jace felt an unexpected twinge of disappointment. "So you'll be moving on now?" "That would be traditional," Kira agreed. "The balance is restored. Honor is satisfied." She hesitated, then added, "Yet I find myself reluctant." "Reluctant." Kira's whiskers twitched in what Jace now recognized as a smile. "The known galaxies are vast, and I have no pride to return to. You are adequate company for a human. Your reactions in danger are commendably quick for your species." "High praise indeed," Jace replied, unable to suppress his own smile. "You know, Earth Transport Guild licenses typically include budget for an assistant. Someone to watch my back on deliveries." "An assistant?" Kira's ears flattened slightly. "I am a third-rank hunter of the Night Shadow Pride." "Ex-Night Shadow Pride," Jace corrected gently. "And I'm an ex-gray market courier. Maybe we both need a fresh start." He leaned forward. "Besides, the guild contracts include meal allowances, All the French fries you can eat. Kira's ears perked immediately. This is a compelling argument, she admitted, whiskers twitching more vigorously. Before they could discuss the matter further, Jace's portable terminal chimed with an incoming message. The sender was unlisted, but the content was clear enough. Package still active. Blackwood secondary protocol initiated. Check your ship. Jace showed the message to Kira, whose fur immediately bristled. A trap, she growled. The director anticipated failure and prepared accordingly. Our ship, Jace realized. They must have planted something during transit. He activated the terminal's communication function. Dr. Charleston, we have a situation. 20 minutes later, they stood in the facility's hangar bay, watching as a specialized security team carefully examined their ship. The technicians moved methodically, using scanning equipment to check every compartment and system. Found it, one technician called out eventually. Engine compartment, tied into the ignition sequence. Looks like a micro-EMP device with a biological delivery system. Would have fried your navigation mid-flight and released the same bioagent as the original package. Blackwood is thorough, Dr. Charleston observed grimly. She intended to eliminate all loose ends. Jace nodded, feeling a chill despite the hangar's regulated temperature. How long until the ship is clear? At least 12 hours, the lead technician replied. We need to disarm the device, then run a complete decontamination protocol. We can provide alternative transportation if you're eager to leave, Dr. Charleston offered. Jace exchanged a glance with Kira. Actually, I think we'll stay for tomorrow's FTL test. After all this trouble to protect it, I'm curious to see if it works. The test the following day was a complete success. From a specially designed observation deck, Jace and Kira watched as the experimental drive activated, creating a controlled dimensional fold that allowed instant communication with a receiver on Mars. The implications were revolutionary, not just faster travel, but near instantaneous communication across the solar system, and eventually, perhaps, between stars. Impressive for human technology, Kira conceded, as they watched the scientists celebrate. We have our moments, Jace replied, though I'd still trade most of it for a good plate of French fries. This earned him a rumbling purr that he'd come to recognize as Kira's laugh. After the test, their ship was declared safe for travel. Dr. Charleston personally saw them off, providing them with official documentation of their role in preventing the sabotage, documentation that would open doors throughout Earth-controlled space. The Earth Transport Guild is still interested in your services. Mr. Morgan, she reminded him. With your experience in navigating less regulated spaces and Kira's unique abilities, you'd make a valuable team for special deliveries. I'll be in touch, Jace promised. As they prepared for departure, Jace noticed Kira examining the ship's tiny galley with unusual intensity. Something wrong? He asked. This cooling unit, she said, indicating the refrigeration compartment. Could it maintain the proper temperature for potato preparation? Jace couldn't help laughing. You really did like those fries, didn't you? Kira's expression was deadly serious. They were a revelation. Tell you what, Jace said, settling into the pilot's seat and beginning the pre-flight sequence. First stop after we leave Europa, a proper Earth restaurant. I know a place on Mars Colony that makes the best hand-cut fries in the solar system. Kira took the co-pilot's seat, her orange eyes bright with anticipation. This is acceptable. Where will we go after Mars? Jace considered the question as the ship lifted from the landing pad, Europa's icy surface falling away beneath them. The vastness of space opened before them, countless stars representing endless possibilities. Wherever the work takes us, I suppose, he said. The Guild contracts go all over Earth-controlled space, and beyond. Beyond sounds interesting, Kira observed. Her gaze remained fixed on the stars ahead, but her tail curled contentedly behind her. I have never seen an Earth ocean, or a real forest. Your planet has many environments to explore. Then we'll have to make sure our route includes Earth at some point, Jace promised. He engaged the main engines, and the ship, officially registered as the Starbound, accelerated away from Europa. By the way, he added, as Jupiter grew smaller behind them, if anyone threatens me in a bar or something, feel free to growl all you want. Kira's whiskers twitched in that now familiar expression of amusement. I would do so even without permission. Some habits transcend cultural boundaries. Jace Morgan. Fair enough, Jace conceded, programming their course for Mars. Partners should have each other's backs. Partners, Kira repeated, testing the word. Not life debt. Partners. She nodded slowly. This term is acceptable. The Starbound's engines hummed steadily as they accelerated toward their first destination as an official team. Behind them lay danger escaped. Ahead, adventures unknown. And somewhere between Mars and Earth, a plate of French fries waited, the simple treasure that had forged an unlikely bond across the stars. As the ship's AI took over routine navigation, Jace leaned back in his seat, watching Kira from the corner of his eye. The Philidian was studying the ship's star charts with intense concentration, occasionally pointing to a system and asking questions about human presence or natural features. Her curiosity seemed boundless, reminding Jace how little of the known galaxy she had likely seen during her time with the Night Shadow Pride. Hunters typically remained within their clan territories, venturing out only for specific missions. Exile had thrust Kira into a vast universe with no guide. Until now. You know, Jace said thoughtfully, with legitimate guild credentials, we'll have access to a lot more systems, including some that rarely see Philidians. Kira's ears perked forward, her interest evident. Are there worlds with large bodies of water? With forests that change colors? With mountains that reach beyond the clouds? The questions tumbled out with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. All of those and more, Jace confirmed. Earth has all three, actually, and dozens of colony worlds have their own versions, some more spectacular than the originals. I would like to see these places, Kira said, a hint of wonder in her normally pragmatic voice. Then we will, Jace promised, one delivery at a time. As Mars grew larger in their view screen, Jace found himself looking forward to showing Kira the wonders of human space. And perhaps, along the way, she would introduce him to the marvels of her world as well. A partnership forged over French fries, cemented in danger, and now stretching toward the stars. Not at all what Jace had expected when he'd spent his last credits on a simple Earth comfort food. But as Kira had noted, sometimes the most significant connections begin with the smallest gestures of kindness. Even something as simple as sharing your fries with a hungry stranger in a vast and often uncaring universe. The Starbound continued its journey through the star-flecked darkness, carrying its two unlikely partners toward whatever adventure awaited them next.